Welcome to Political Beatdown. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by Michael Cohen. We have a lot to discuss. As I said on the Brothers podcast, Cohen, this was before Trump's UN speech. I said, where do we begin, brothers? I said, I thought Trump's Mount Vernon, Virginia speech, where he just started calling former President Biden a son of a bitch and just started screaming. I said, I thought that was maybe close to a new low. Then I said the Charlie Kirk memorial that Donald Trump turned into a hate speech was a new low, where Trump literally, I call it a hate speech because Trump says, I hate my opponents. I hate them. And then he started invoking Charlie Kirk's name to say, he wants me to invade Chicago. He wants me to impose the tariff. So then yesterday, of course, was Donald Trump's Oval Office speech with RFK Jr. and Dr. Oz, where Donald Trump said, pregnant women do not take Tylenol. And then he gave other medical disinformation and dangerous conspiracies about hepatitis B and the MMRV vaccine. One of the strangest, in many ways even worse than during COVID, when Trump said, inject yourself with bleach. But then today, which I couldn't cover on the Brothers show from yesterday, you had the United Nations speech before the General Assembly, where the escalator didn't work, then Trump's teleprompter didn't work. And then once he started giving his speech, he started attacking all the countries and said, basically, your countries are hell. We hate your countries, and then he started talking about renewable energy is horrible. He started doing the whole speech where he brags about 7 wars that he claims he stopped when it was just all a lie. You had people in the General Assembly. There were some laughing at him, but overall, it was this kind of eerie, people's hands over their face, like, what the hell is happening? Like, I think it was terrifying for a lot of people just to see how sick, how ill, and how dangerous of an individual he is, to actually see it there, because we see it every day in the United States, but the way that went down. So Cohen, Ben, that was the past 4 days.
Before we even get started, during this assembly speech, he started to ramble about the elevator and, as you just said, the teleprompter. But he gave this great, truly unbelievable accounting that he was on the elevator, of course, with the First Lady. And thank goodness that they're both in really good shape, because it stopped middle of the way. Jeremy, do me a favor if you can. Replay the video. They hadn't even gotten onto the escalator yet before it stopped. It's amazing how he tells a story, boom, it stops. They're at the very bottom. It's amazing. He told this long-winded story about how they're both in great shape, otherwise they would have fallen down the escalator. Well, truth be told, you have to actually be on the escalator to fall off the escalator, down the escalator. It's amazing how he comes up with this sort of nonsense, and then he just keeps spinning on it over and over, because, again, if it just didn't work, that doesn't really play out the effect of how terrible the building is and how badly he's being treated. It's just something I want our brigaders to keep in mind as you listen to this episode of lunacy.
So you go through this speech that he gave at the United Nations, and I mean it sincerely, Cohen. It was one of the strangest things that I've ever watched. Dangerous, bizarre. Let's just go through some of it. I'll get your reaction to it. Donald Trump begins the speech by talking about, and this is your point where he attacks the escalators and the teleprompters. He goes, many years ago, a very successful man, real estate developer named Donald J. Trump was going to build this building, but you went in another direction. That's how he starts the speech here, played.
Many years ago, a very successful real estate developer in New York, known as Donald J. Trump, I bid on the renovation and rebuilding of this very United Nations complex. I remember it so well. I said at the time that I would do it for $500 million, rebuilding everything. It would be beautiful. I used to talk about, I'm going to give you marble floors. They're going to give you terrazzo. I'm going to give you the best of everything. You're going to have mahogany walls. They're going to give you plastic. But they decided to go in another direction, which was much more expensive at the time, and which actually produced a far inferior product.
Yeah, a far inferior product. Look, he did. He bid on the United Nations project, and he was not successful in winning the bid. I don't know the reason why. It preceded my time at the Trump organization. But one thing for certain is, yeah, Donald Trump would not have used terrazzo. You could definitely acknowledge that. It would probably have been marble, which, by the way, you know, when it rains or it snows, it's obviously dangerous walking on marble, meaning you have to put down carpet or rolling carpets and so on. But the whole point is the part that I truly don't get. What was the point? What's the relevance of him not getting a contract, of him unhappy with the terrazzo flooring, that the teleprompter didn't work, the escalator didn't work? I'm not sure how I understand that a speech before the world's leaders, representatives from every corner of this earth, is interested in hearing a story that belongs maybe in his next book, Trump, a memoir. This to me was baffling. And if you thought it was baffling to me, as I was flipping through the various different channels, I wanted to see what others would say, or the looks on the faces of those that were there in attendance. And like myself sitting there on my couch watching this television, I too was completely befuddled.
You know, it's interesting because you have state regime media, Fox. They immediately try to sane wash this thing and say, Donald Trump just unloaded and unfurled truth bombs in front of the United Nations. It was an epic speech. Let's bring in Senator Thune, the majority leader. Senator Thune, what do you think about it? Then the majority leader of the Senate goes, well, that's Donald Trump at his best right there, being direct, and he's projecting an America first message to the rest of the world. And finally, we have somebody projecting strength and not weakness, and the world leaders are going to know that you better be ready when Donald Trump's like, what are you talking about? What did you just watch? Because what I just watched, it wasn't even weakness masquerading as strength. It was weakness masquerading as weirdo weakness. I don't even know what, like, objectively, if somebody in your middle school group project, okay, middle school group project behaved like this, you would be humiliated. Oh my God, Donald screwed up our group project. You know, was supposed to present a report to the mock United Nations on whatever, and someone behaved like this. So I just don't, the word I keep on using over and over again, Cohen, on all of my shows now that I do across the network is moral clarity. And we just need people to say with moral clarity, this is humiliating. This is embarrassing. This is not normal. You and I will talk later in the show about Donald Trump ordering Pam Bondi to prosecute his political opponents in a overt text message that was posted as a Truth Social message saying, go after them. He fires the Eastern District of Virginia, United States federal prosecutor, who, by the way, was a Republican, who was like, you know, the Trumpers were okay with him.
Yeah, appointed by Donald.
Yeah, picked by Donald's guy because he didn't find enough evidence to prosecute New York Attorney General Letitia James. I mean, compared to Watergate, what Trump does on a daily basis is nuclear versions of Watergate every single day. Yet there's nobody, certainly in the Republican Party, but in media, speaking with moral clarity to say, what the hell? Because already, Cohen, that story from the weekend basically fades, right? Donald Trump does something crazy. We move on from him posting Pam prosecute my political opponents, which in a normal, even semi-healthy democracy would be viewed as, that's it, you're impeached, you're done, you're gone, see you later. That's a crime. That shows you the sickness of our country right now, Cohen.
Well, I think you have to take that and then couple it with, for example, Tom Homan, as I wrote in my Substack of the other day about the kava bag of cash. You're talking about a brown paper bag from a Mediterranean bowl fast food chain restaurant and receiving $50,000. Then having Laura Ingraham actually bring Tom Homan up and have him sort of validate the fact that he did nothing wrong. And the way that he validates it is by claiming that Kash Patel and Pam Bondi have decided that there is not enough evidence or any evidence whatsoever within which to bring a charge. Now, again, if you are a MAGA supporter, if you are a right of center, you're saying, well, there you have it. There was nothing there. And if you are center or left of center, you're saying, well, of course, Kash Patel is going to shut the FBI investigation down. Of course, Pam Bondi's not going to prosecute. You see, we're living right now with the Donald Trump 2.0. Everybody's talking about it today. I've been talking about it now for years, literally 4+ years, that the Donald Trump that won the election in 2025, that is a second-term president, is going to be incredibly different than the Donald Trump that you saw in the 1.0 in 2016. He has learned, and very, very quickly, how to basically step on all levers of power, step on the co-equal branches, the legislative branch, the judiciary, and do whatever it is that he wants to do. And the worst part, it's bad enough that the president is doing this, but those that are around him, his enablers, his sycophants, his cabinet, they all think that they're Donald Trump. They're all trying to be Donald Trump or Donald Trump light. They are not. And they do not have, as the Supreme Court granted Trump, presidential immunity. And I do truly suspect that if we can get our shit together as a community and grow this community to be so big, so vocal, so powerful, that finally, in the midterm, if it goes the right way, we will start to see accountability for all of these. It'll be the modern day 2025, or I should say 2026 Nuremberg trials.
You know, I want to use your story as an example right now, and I hope you don't get offended if I personalize this, Cohen, but I think you are an example, though, of the crossroads when you're in Trump's orbit that you could take, and the fallout and ramifications you suffered as a result of standing up and telling the truth shows a lot of these MAGA Republicans the path that they could take or not take. And it's why I appreciate everything that you've done. And it's why I think what you've done is nothing short of heroic, standing up during a very, very difficult time, with the most impossible time, Trump at the peak of his power during the first administration. But
and
when
be a federal inmate.
Yeah, I mean, you were put in solitary confinement for over 50 days. You were, you even before then, you were incarcerated for a long period of time, and you saw what happens when you tell the truth, and when you had your mea culpa. And so when you're in somebody's orbit, like a Trump orbit, for all, whether you're a MAGA Mike Johnson, whether you are, a Lindsey Halligan or a Pam Bondi or whoever, the Kash Patel, right? you have a choice where you are compromised at some point because you're with someone doing bad things, and you have an option to kind of further entrench yourself in doing those bad things and going deeper down the rabbit hole, which makes it harder to extract, or you extract yourself from it. You have a mea culpa, you tell the truth, but there are real world consequences. And so, Cohen, when people still to this day, go after you and say, well, you were Trump's guy and you were in that orbit and you were whatever, and sometimes you'll respond to those people, and it'll hurt you. I mean, and it'll upset you. It's because getting out of that world, I think is so difficult to extract. It's not hypothetical pain that you felt or a hypothetical threat. I mean, you were locked in a room where you couldn't see out of it without an exit because you wouldn't waive your First Amendment rights, and you were removed from your family and thrown into prison for not an insignificant period of time. And so people look at that and they go, well, maybe I just go deeper down it, and then they wind up, and I just think it's an interesting perspective that you uniquely have, Cohen.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your kind word or words, hero. I'm no hero. Let me be clear. I've said it on television. I've said it to press. I'm not a hero. I never look at myself as being a hero. I'm actually a little bit uncomfortable with the word. To those of you who know this story, I apologize, but for those that don't, let me share. I was subpoenaed. I was subpoenaed from the very first time by the Senate Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, then by HPSI, the House Permanent Select, then the Senate Judiciary, then by the House Oversight, then again by SIPSI, and then again by HPSI. 7 different congressional hearings, 9 hours each. Grilled. Initially, it was by both sides, then it just became by Republicans. Grilled. Horrible things say about you for 9 hours. Okay. Got past that. Then I was subpoenaed to the grand jury for the New York Attorney General case. I was subpoenaed to testify as a lead witness in the New York Attorney General case. Subpoenaed again by the Manhattan DA for grand jury. Subpoenaed again by the Manhattan DA to be the lead witness in that trial. And yes, of course, I told the truth. And people, when you say, Ben, that I get upset with people and the critics, no. What I get upset about is the continuous regurgitation of false information about me. That, oh, Cohen, well, he lied to Congress. I did. I acknowledged it. But then again, I explain what the lie was. It was a lie, but is it relevant? It's one thing to say, oh yeah, Cohen lied and he acknowledged it, but it's important and more important to even know what that lie was. The number of times that I claimed to have told Trump or talked to Trump about the failed Trump Tower Moscow real estate project. I told the Senate Permanent Select Committee 3 times. The true answer was 10. That's the big lie. That's the one that's supposed to cast me as somebody who's not trustworthy, credible. Well, let me be very clear. Both judges in both cases, as well as all of the various different congressional hearings, they all found my testimony to be credible. There was never another claim. So just imagine what Trump would do today if the Michael Cohen case was taking place, not in the Trump 1.0 scenario, but in the 2.0. He would have done actually what I had suggested he do early on in 2017, shut this shit down. And he probably should have. And he's probably angry at a lot of people that told him he shouldn't do it. But Donald Trump 2.0 has learned so much about the power of the executive, and he intends to use every power available. He has Project 2025 as the Bible to go by. He's got folks like Russ Vought and Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon and others that are continuing to coax him to do this, to do that. It's why every day we wake up to chaos. Every night we go to sleep to chaos. And unless we do something about it, Ben, meaning help Midas Touch Network, help me, help all of us to grow this community so that we are unstoppable, that we can finally get our Constitution, we can get everything back.
Well, Cohen, during the first term, the Supreme Court had not granted absolute immunity, and the people were still operating under the idea that a president was not above the law. So not only did our Supreme Court let Donald Trump off the hook in the criminal prosecutions of him, but they affirmatively pronounced that he would be entitled to absolute immunity from any criminal ramifications so long as he can claim some Article 2 executive power. So as long as he says that there's an emergency or national security, that's all he needs to say, I get absolute immunity, and you can't even question me or take discovery or delve into the deliberations at all, in addition to an executive privilege assertion because of this absolute immunity protection. So it's just an interesting comparison that our Supreme Court, in I think a very unhealthy democracy right now, grants Donald Trump absolute immunity as it takes away women's reproductive rights, as it allows weapons of war to proliferate despite the Second Amendment using the words well-regulated militia. There the Supreme Court says, we may be textualists, but regulation in the amendment actually doesn't mean regulation in the amendment. But then you contrast it to Brazil, where their Supreme Court moved swiftly, found their insurrectionist president, and now the co-conspirators like Bolsonaro's kid I heard about today, but they found Jair Bolsonaro, the insurrectionist president, guilty, swiftly sentenced to over 25 years in prison. And then our insurrectionist president, Donald Trump, then goes after the Brazil Supreme Court. Our State Department imposes Magnitsky Act sanctions against Brazil's Supreme Court judge, and then does the sanctions against the judge's wife because they found Jair Bolsonaro guilty. Now, at the same time, at the UN, the Trump regime is meeting with Javier Milei, the leader of Argentina, their president there, who needs a bailout because Argentina's economy is in the tank. And our Treasury Department is saying that America first means we must bail out Argentina. So if you think about the chaotic American foreign policy right now, right, at the UN, you have Donald Trump attacking Europe, basically showing weakness when it comes to NATO. We're attacking Brazil. Brazil is eating our clock right now and taking our farmers' exports away, as Brazil soybeans and Brazil produce is crushing it. We had a trade surplus with Brazil that Donald Trump just threw down the drain by imposing 50% tariffs against Brazil because, again, their prosecution of Jair Bolsonaro. Trump's rushing to save the floundering economy of Argentina with taxpayer dollars. And you have Donald Trump lecturing the world about why they shouldn't have windmills, and all of that, and Trump claiming that he solved all of these wars or made peace in areas that the world knows he didn't make peace. He claims Kosovo, which he had nothing to do with, and there's what is he even talking about there? He claims he brought peace to Congo. There's just not peace in Congo. He talks about Egypt and things that talks about things that weren't even wars. India and Pakistan, which he had nothing to do with. But take a look at this, Cohen. This is when the teleprompter breaks. And we'll go through some more of these clips, but here's the teleprompter. Let's play it.
and I don't mind making the speech without a teleprompter, because the teleprompter is not working. I feel very happy to be up here with you nevertheless, and that way you speak more from the heart. I can only say that whoever's operating this teleprompter is in big trouble.
Yeah, you're laughing at him. Over here, he then he attacks Europe, says he goes, we are rapidly reversing economic calamity we inherited from the previous administration. So he's at the UN attacking Biden, and then he claims that we've defeated inflation. Here, play this clip.
This is indeed the golden age of America. We are rapidly reversing the economic calamity we inherited from the previous administration, including ruinous price increases and record-setting inflation like we've never had before. Under my leadership, energy costs are down, gasoline prices are down, grocery prices are down, mortgage rates are down, and inflation has been defeated. The only thing that's up is the stock market, which just hit a record high.
Melania's interest in me is down. Did you see? She looked miserable. She looked miserable sitting there. Could you imagine, Ben, you are a leader or you are a representative of your country and the president of the United States. And you know what bothers me is that I wasn't able to watch earlier speeches by different ambassadors and representatives of countries, because I'm curious as to what is the theme of this year's UNGA, United Nations General Assembly. Is the theme Comedy Central roast? Right? Then we need Nikki Glaser to get up there and to really give it a whirl. Obviously, Kevin Hart is always a big draw. But instead, we get our president who gets up there, and there was basically few, if any, countries that he did not roast as you are no good, we are great, you owe us, you have to do as I say, look at how great I've made America. America is now militarily, economically, the strongest country in the world. He's sitting there and putting down each and every country to their face. And imagine that you have to sit there with the translating cup in your ear and listen to it. And I agree with you. They weren't laughing with him. They were laughing at him. And when they laugh at him, they're laughing at the United States of America. They're laughing at us. I don't know, to be perfectly frank here, I don't know why this was the speech that they decided to go with. I cannot, for the life of me, figure out when Steve Miller or whoever else handed him the script and he decided to read through it, which I'm sure he did read through it, that this is the angle that he thought best for the United States. I truly don't understand it, and I'm disturbed by it.
Over here, he goes and says to the countries, you're destroying your countries. They are being destroyed. Europe is in serious trouble. He looks at all of the all the leaders and tells them all they're destroying their countries at the UN. Here, play this clip.
We have reasserted that America belongs to the American people, and I encourage all countries to take their own stand in defense of their citizens as well. You have to do that because I see it. I'm not mentioning names. I see it, and I can call every single one of them out. You're destroying your countries. They're being destroyed. Europe is in serious trouble. They've been invaded by a force of illegal aliens like nobody's ever seen before. Illegal aliens are pouring into Europe. Nobody is ever, and nobody's doing anything to change it, to get them out. It's not sustainable. And because they choose to be politically correct, they're doing just absolutely nothing about it.
And also, you notice that when Donald Trump was saying that you all don't take care of your countries, Fox intentionally brought the camera right on the Mexico delegation right there, which was an intentional choice by Fox. They could have showed any delegation, but they probably have the speech in advance, and they were queued up to say, show Mexico at that time. We're going to take our first and only quick break of the show. I want to remind everybody, though, to subscribe to Michael Cohen's Substack, which, Cohen, I see that's like a top 10 Substack now. Great work on what you're...
and thank you and Midas Touch Network for also posting my daily Substack articles on your digital platform here as well. I mean, I can only tell you, I have like a 65, 68% readership of all of my articles, which I think is pretty high.
You're a great writer. You're a great writer. And I never call you a hero. I called you heroic. Just to yeah. I also want to remind everybody to subscribe to Michael Cohen's YouTube channel, The Michael Cohen Show, and subscribe to Mea Culpa, the audio podcast that Cohen does when we're not doing this podcast together. We'll be right back. First quick break. See you when we get back.
I got to tell you about my neighbor's cat. You know, the one I always talk about, Marlo. I mean, this guy is a total character. Last week, I watched him sniff around my kitchen like an inspector, judging everything. I mean, I swear, if he could talk, he'd be reviewing restaurants on Yelp. And you know what? I realized something. Marlo deserves the best. And that's where Smalls comes in. Even though I don't feed him, I know he'd go crazy for it, because Smalls is real protein-packed, preservative-free food that cats actually love. I mean, imagine Marlo doing a taste test. 2 bowls side by side, one with mystery kibble, one with Smalls. Guaranteed, he wouldn't even glance at the kibble. Go straight for Smalls, nose twitching, tail flicking, the full Marlo seal of approval. So know this, that Smalls started in 2017. 2 people cooking in small batches for friends' cats, and now they've served millions of meals. Fresh, healthy recipes that give cats shinier fur, more energy, fewer hairballs, and a litter box that doesn't make you question life choices. And if your cat doesn't love it, Smalls will refund you. No risk, no questions. So here's the deal. For a limited time, because you're a Political Beatdown listener, you're going to get 60% off your first order plus free shipping. So go right now to smalls.com/beat. That's Smalls, SMALLS.com/beat for 60% off plus free shipping. Treat your cat, or just imagine Marlo enjoying every bite. It's worth it. You ever try launching a podcast with zero experience? Well, let me tell you something. It's like being tossed into a cage match with a grizzly bear, blindfolded, wearing clown shoes. Because when I started Political Beatdown with Ben, I thought, come on, man, how hard can this be? Script writing, logos, production schedules, ad deals, and don't even get me started on the tech setup. I mean, I feel like I was decoding a damn matrix. Now, if only I had Shopify when I launched this beast. Shopify is the platform behind millions of businesses across the globe, responsible for a whopping 10%. You hear that? 10% of all e-commerce in the United States. And my friends, that's not hype. That's fact. From big names like Mattel and Gymshark to folks just getting their hustle off the ground, Shopify's got their back. I mean, you want a gorgeous online store? Shopify's got hundreds of sleek, ready-to-go templates that make you look like a design god. AI tools? Yeah, they've got those too. Writing your podcast descriptions, jazzing up your images, maybe even making you sound smarter than you are. I mean, not naming names. And you need a marketing squad? Shopify's built-in tools let you hit email, Instagram, TikTok, wherever your customers are scrolling or doom scrolling. And listen, Shopify handles it all. inventory returns, international shipping. I mean, they are the ride or die business partner that you never knew you needed. So if you got a big idea or even a little one and you're ready to turn that dream into a reality, head over to shopify.com/beat. That's shopify.com/beat to start your $1 per month trial today. That's Shopify, shopify.com/beat.
Welcome back to Political Beatdown. We should do a whole show of Michael Cohen just reading ads. And I'm just surprised, Cohen, no one has hired you to just be a ad reader for
Did you
them.
ever see that Jimmy? Did you ever see that Jimmy Kimmel cartoon of me where he took it off Mea Culpa and he says, Cohen has like a Schwarzenegger-esque type, affection, right? So he goes, yeah, maybe I'll be in a Disney. Nah.
I have mixed feelings actually about Jimmy Kimmel returning. I'm happy that he's returning on air, despite the fact that Nexstar and Sinclair are refusing to air the show, and they carry most of the local affiliates. So he's not going to be on in most households based on the fact that he's being canceled by Nexstar and Sinclair. But I don't know, Cohen, if you're Jimmy Kimmel. And I understand that he also feels a broader obligation to his staff and his team and people who depend on the show also, that if the show just ends, all these people who he's worked with, they're out of jobs. So I know he thinks like that, and he's an empathetic individual. But I just don't know how you're able to perform when you said nothing wrong, they pulled you so quickly that you then can just show up and do a monologue.
Which is exactly why it's going to be the most watched show. I mean, when you have other late night hosts propping your return up, know that it's going to be a kick-ass monologue. And I think he comes right out and he says, so obviously everybody knows that I was off the air for the last few days. I'm sure this is how he's going to start it off. And I don't apologize for anything that I said. And I think he has to be defiant. He cannot turn around and act and say, you know what, maybe I shouldn't have said it. Maybe it was too soon. Maybe it was too strong. Maybe yada, 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 and so on. He cannot do that, because if he does that, number one, he'll lose his audience. Two, I do believe that Sinclair and Nexstar will ultimately have to come back and pick it up. They're not going to do it right away. They'll give it like an extra week or two, but they're going to have to, because one of the other shows that they actually carry is NFL, right? And so when ABC has the NFL exclusive on it, ABC Disney could easily go to them and say, you know what? No, we're not going to give you access within which to cross promote it. I mean, they do have a lot of power over Nexstar and Sinclair. And I'll tell you something, if this was the other way around, if it was Donald Trump that was being silenced, you could bet your bottom dollar that right now there would be not one, not two, but probably 3 investigations opened into these companies.
Let's show you what else went down. And then I want to show you what happened in the Oval Office as well. I don't want to neglect that. So also Donald Trump attacks the mayor of London there. And let me just show you this clip right here, Cohen. Let's play it.
And I have to say, I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible, terrible mayor. And it's been so changed, so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law, but you're in a different country. You can't do that.
If you listen carefully, you can hear the people in the background who are like just gross. Then Donald Trump thinks that it's funny to talk about how there aren't that many boats right now off the coast of Venezuela because the United States military keeps on striking boats. Fishing boats, and saying that they're narco terrorists, but isn't providing any evidence that they're all narco terrorists. How do we know that if it is Tren de Aragua that they're not trafficking innocent people? How do we know that there are drugs on these bikes? Normally,
Trump and the administration told you so.
Oh, exactly. The regime said so. Let me show you this clip over here. Let's play it.
To protect our citizens, I've also designated multiple savage drug cartels as far as and you see this, and you see it happening right before your eyes. Let's put it this way: people don't like taking big loads of drugs in boats anymore. There aren't too many boats that are traveling on the seas by Venezuela. They tend not to want to travel very quickly anymore. And we've virtually stopped drugs coming into our country by sea. We call them the water drugs. They kill hundreds of thousands of people.
We haven't virtually stopped the drugs coming in. Those drugs are not coming in by 24 feet open top boats from Venezuela that frankly don't have enough fuel to get to the United States. I mean, the drug traffickers do it in far more sophisticated ways, whether it's underground tunnels.
Ben, you do have to turn around and acknowledge that Operation Viper, which is right now in effect, they have seized, since nobody's dare trying to enter U.S. territory with any drugs. I don't know if you know this, but just in the month of August alone, Operation Viper, the Coast Guard, seized 75,000 pounds of cocaine. 75,000. Well, I guess maybe they missed blowing those things up. Maybe somebody shut off the, I don't know, the console to the Xbox or whatever the hell that they're using. But don't say that shooting these little fishing boats, because I'm with you, Ben. This is absolutely not the way anybody is transporting anything. And you know something? If there's anything that you learn from the movie Scarface, it's, for every one load that gets grabbed, there's at least one or more loads that get through. So, not so sure that blowing up a couple of fishing boats, and I'm with you on that as well, Ben. We don't know what the hell is on it. For all you know, it could have been, I don't know, crab or lobster. That's certainly not going to stop the drug epidemic in this country.
It makes zero sense at just the most logical level based on the amount of fuel a 24-foot boat can carry, the fact that these boats don't have, they're open top boats. You can see right into them. If you exercise just a modicum of common sense, what do you think is happening with these boats? MAGA, you think that these boats are going from Venezuela? How are they going to get back? Okay, let's assume that they have enough fuel to get to Florida. The drug dealers, they show up there. Where do they park the boat? You think our Coast Guard is not going to catch a fishing boat like that entering the water? Of course they're going to catch it. What the sophisticated cartels are doing is they're taking the drugs on private jets. They're taking the drugs through underground tunnels. They're smuggling the drugs into South America and then bringing it up. They're hiding it in cargo. They have sophisticated means of hiding the material by placing it in other types of compounds so that you don't actually see it. And then, maybe they're in toys or other, there's other ways that they go about doing it. But anyway, it's just another area that he's out there bragging about, killing fishing boats, killing people in fishing boats. I want to go to the Oval Office press conference, just show you a few things here. Again, this is one of the most embarrassing press conferences I've seen. Donald Trump saying, don't take Tylenol to pregnant women who are suffering and have a fever. He's saying, do not take Tylenol. And if pregnant women have fevers that are untreated and Tylenol is safe for them to take, that's actually going to harm the baby if they just let a fever stand and try to fight the fever by themselves. But here's what Donald Trump says based on complete medical quackery. Let's play it.
Don't take Tylenol. There's no downside. Don't take it. You'll be uncomfortable. It won't be as easy, maybe, but don't take it. If you're pregnant, don't take Tylenol. And don't give it to the baby after the baby is born. And you know what? We have more than 3 years.
Wow.
Then he can't even pronounce acetaminophen. Let me just show you this. He can't even pronounce what the generic Tylenol is, the active ingredient. Here, play it.
First, effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen. Is that okay? Which is basically commonly known as Tylenol, during pregnancy can be associated with a very increased risk of autism.
I just had someone text me right now, Cohen. Someone says, I'm in a location, I won't say where it is. Can you please scream on my behalf about the assholes who are daring to speak about autism as if they have half a brain between them? And, you know, this is really dangerous stuff. It's why we created Midas Health, me and the brothers, because we need to get out accurate health. We have Dr. Vin Gupta lead that, Cohen, with the top medical people giving advice. But like, this is worse to me even than when he said inject yourself with bleach.
You know, I wrote my Substack, which you guys put up on your platform as well, called The Great Tylenol Tragedy of 2025. And I sort of poke fun at, obviously, this carnival, this circus of stupidity. When you have Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who, let's just say he's as close to a medical degree as going to dinner and sitting next to a doctor. And then, of course, you have Mehmet Oz, the TV doctor, who has all of these cures that are, I don't know, hocus pocus cures. It's so devastating because we all know people who have, whether it's children who are on the spectrum. I know people who have children who are so severely autistic that they have basically never lived with the family. They live in a facility. I also know others who are off the chart, Asperger genius, like off the chart. And so there is a long, long spectrum. And to, number one, call it a disease, it is not a disease. And what he's doing, what they are doing, and he's been told this before, because this isn't the first time that he's talked about this. He talked about this going back when I was still part of the administration, well, not the administration, the Trump organization. He talked about, you know, they put in like 5 pounds worth of liquid into an 8-pound baby. No, they don't. And that the measles, mumps, rubella, it should all be separated out. And that these are the things that are causing autism. Folks from like Autism Speaks reached out and said to him, you're setting us back more than a decade. We have so much research that basically explains that it's their belief that it's as a result of the male sperm, that it mutates after a certain age as we get older. And the reason that autism is on the rise is because more elder guys are having children with young women, second marriages, third marriages, or they're just getting married late in life. So when he starts talking about the Amish, who statistically get married and have children before they're even 21, none of what they're saying is true. It is so not just legitimately damaging to what they're trying to do, which is to figure out how to fix this problem, but it's emotionally damaging, especially to the people who are living through it. It demeans people who have autism in some of the worst possible ways. I'm just blown away. In fact, I'm so blown away that somebody like Dr. Mehmet Oz, the only doctor of the three of them up there, didn't come out and say something smart, something true, something based upon facts and science and based upon reality, not some, again, nonsense that's living next to the worm in RFK Jr.'s head. And Mehmet Oz should know better because he actually is a doctor. And before coming out with something as vile as these statements, I do truly believe that he should have been the adult with the lab coat in the room. And because Mehmet chose not to, because he chose fealty to Trump, he chose the loyalty to the narrative, Mehmet, fuck you. On behalf of everybody in this country, in the world that is dealing with autism or that knows somebody who has autism or a family member of theirs, we all turn around and we give you the two-finger salute for the day. Fuck you, Mehmet.
You know, I want to address as well the fact that we're heading towards a government shutdown. That's not getting enough attention. October 1st, government shuts down. Jewish holidays this week, so Congress not in session right now. Congress was supposed to be in session September 29th and September 30th. MAGA Mike Johnson canceled those days of work. The 2 days before the shutdown, MAGA Mike said to Republicans, do not show up. Then there was supposed to be a meeting on Thursday between Democrat leaders, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer and Donald Trump and MAGA Mike Johnson and Senator Thune. It's supposed to take place in the White House. It was a confirmed meeting. MAGA Mike Johnson was going to be there. I had my doubts it would be a productive meeting because how could you have a productive meeting with Donald Trump there? How do you negotiate with someone in good faith who, Jeremy, you could put back up the post that Donald Trump made about canceling the meeting. I mean, for those listening on audio and not watching, I mean, it is like a paragraph that if somebody sent it to you without even reading the words, you'd say this person has real serious issues. So how do you have a good faith discussion with someone like Donald Trump, who's just really just a deranged maniac? But Trump canceled it. Trump said, I don't want to do it. He spread a bunch of lies, threw in the word transgender in there because that's how he believes he appeals to his base. Transgender this, transgender that. Trump says that Democrats are trying to take away health care, while the very thing that Democrats are asking for the funding package is to protect the Affordable Care Act tax credits that are set to expire. So not only in the disastrous budget bill will Medicaid be gutted and Medicare be significantly harmed, but in addition, you have Affordable Care Act plans that are going to cost 3 times as much a month. So you watching this, if Democrats are unable to prevail in what they're asking for, you may be paying $1,500 a month for your Affordable Care Act plan. So now do 1,500 times 12, okay, and do the math of what that is annually.
It's 18,000.
And think to yourself, is that within your budget to be able to afford that with all your other bills when people are already living paycheck to paycheck? So I think the stand that Democrats are taking is a principled one right now to say, hey, just do us a favor. We don't like all the stuff you're doing, government. We'll continue to agree to support the fund, at least funding, keeping government open. But you gotta save healthcare because people are going to die. And Republicans are saying no. And then Donald Trump shut down and canceled the meeting. Cohen, I think what's happening here, Donald Trump knows that he has very high disapprovals right now. I think he sees economically where the country's headed. You know, Jerome Powell gave an interview earlier today where he basically said we're in stagflation. I mean, it was a very serious and solemn report that he gave today. He didn't use the word stagflation, but he said decreasing GDP, job losses with increasing inflation. There's a name for that. It's called stagflation. And that it really complicates the work of the Fed to maneuver. That's created by the incongruous, counterintuitive, illogical and dangerous Trump trade war against the world and his chaotic policies based on who he likes and who he doesn't like. So we're dealing with that, Cohen. But I think Trump wants to blame this on Democrats and say they did the shutdown. And I also think he wants to shut it down because he knows the Epstein files are being talked. It just allows him to distract and deflect the attention, shut it down, blame Democrats, put the entire $1 billion or the $1 trillion MAGA media enterprise to blame the Democrats. And then when the markets crash and things go wrong, you blame the Democrats. And I think he views that as a winning issue for him. What do you think before we go?
So I think what you're saying is it's multi-part here. The first part I want to pull apart is you may have heard during the UNGA speech, he talked about how he just saw a poll that has him more popular in America than he has ever been in either the first term or the second term. And that's actually inaccurate. On September 23rd, as an example, there was a poll that came out, and it's written up everywhere. New York Times, Reuters, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, CBS, you name it, NPR, everywhere. And the general theme is that Trump's approval dips as Americans worry about economy. That's what the Reuters Ipsos poll shows. It's a Reuters Ipsos poll. It's at, I think, in fact, his lowest. And so we're really living in a world that is divided into two, not Republican and Democrat, but reality and Disneyland, or fiction. All right. In one case, we're reporting on this Reuters Ipsos poll. Now, if you want to change those numbers, how about do something that improves your favorability, improves the economy? It improves, the lives of Americans, whether it's, as Ben was talking about, healthcare. Because you realize with 24,000, with 20, what would you say, 15, it's $18,000 a year at $1,500 a month. No matter what state you live in, just based on your federal tax rate, no matter what it is, you have to earn $24,000 just to pay for your health coverage. So put that into your annual budget or your monthly budget and figure out how bad this shutdown, how bad this big, beautiful bill is going to hurt you. And that is why the numbers are so low. But he, of course, refuses to acknowledge that. And so what do? You just say the opposite. And you have people repeat it again and again and again until the lie becomes the truth.
I want to conclude by sharing with everybody what one of my friends just texted me while we were live. And she said I could identify her. So I'm not going to give her name, but I will just read to you what she sent me. I want to give the full message. Can you please scream on my behalf about the assholes who are daring to speak about autism as if they have half a brain between them? Happy to express more. I'm so angry on so many levels, and feel free to identify me. Once Jillian, that's my friend's daughter, once Jillian was diagnosed, I spent years and years wondering if I did something wrong. I now wonder what I did so right to deserve such a beautiful human being. Strangers describe her as a shining light. Now they are bringing us back to the dark ages of blaming mothers, the quote, refrigerator moms, end quote. They have no clue what they are talking about, yet see fit to make mothers feel guilty about what they have done or what they might do if ill and need of treatment. They are the illness and current crisis in our society, not the beautiful souls who are autistic. And stop defunding programs to help them reach their highest potential. On that note, we'll sign off from Political Beatdown. A reminder, subscribe to Michael Cohen's YouTube channel, The Michael Cohen Show. Subscribe to Michael Cohen's Substack. one of the top Substacks in America right now. I see you on those charts, Michael Cohen. Subscribe to Michael Cohen's other audio podcast, Mea Culpa, wherever audio podcasts are available. So proud of what you're building, Michael Cohen, there as well, and really proud of what you're building.
Affiliated to the Midas Touch Network. I proudly, as you go back 1 second, Jeremy, on just my mea culpa, notice what's at the bottom. Always has been since day number one, as we pass 500 million downloads. So I am always thankful to you and to your brothers and to everybody that works at Midas Touch, because you're doing the job that the DNC should be doing, and you're doing it better.
Well, we'll just keep putting our head down and doing what we're doing every day, and for me, and I've said this to you before, Cohen, I said this to the Beatdown Brigaders, most of what I've said in the show, I actually feel should not even be political, right? I mean, I'm just trying to evaluate things with receipts, with evidence, with facts, and say, does this make sense? Does this not make sense? Is this empathetic, not empathetic? Is this caring? Is this not caring? Is this helping people or hurting people? And that's the simple values and principles with which we run this by. Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers. And thanks so much for watching. Have a wonderful one, everybody. Shout out Brigader. Shout out Midas Mighty.